Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Stogie Review video review. I am Walt, and here to bring you yet another cigar review. If you're unfamiliar with Stogie Review, Jerry, Brian, and I typically do one cigar review a week each. And if you're, well, depending on the week, all three of us or one of us may produce some sort of video. There's constantly new video content on the site, at least one video a week. For all you seasoned viewers out there, I am sort of shifting back towards the Los Blancos reviews that I need to do. I've been juggling back and forth between the Isle de Cuba and Los Blancos cigars, and the one I'm reviewing tonight is the Premier Criollo. Now, specifics on this cigar is this is the Corona Vitola. It's 44 by 5.5. It's got a Honduran Criollo wrapper, Honduran binder, and Nicaraguan filler. Now, these are made in the Nestor Plasencia factory in Nicaragua, and the price point, it's a little tough to judge. I'm looking around, and best I can come up with is about $5.75 for the Robusto, so I would assume that this is probably around $5.25, $5 a piece. Now, just like on the Premier Maduro, if you head on over to losblancos.com, you'll see that they have a listing of all their cigars, and within that listing they have this scale which runs 1 to 10, and it gives you a general idea where their cigar is going to fall on that strength scale. The Criollo is a 7 on that strength scale, and I think the Maduro was a 5. So I expect this one to have a little bit more body, just by doing that little bit of research. So I got the head of the cigar open. Pre-light draw is good. Getting lots of air through it and very little resistance. Not much in terms of flavor. As far as the construction goes, the cigar looks pretty good. The spiraling seam that runs down the cigar is pretty visible. It's lifting just a little bit. I think that a lot of times when you see that, it's due to change in humidity, possibly from when I got these and lowered them down to my preferred humidity, or perhaps they were a little bit dry when I got them, and bringing them back up. So I think that sometimes this little bit of the seam becoming visible has something to do with the humidity changing back and forth. And in my case, they've been sitting in the cooler for a few weeks, so there's been some acclimation there. The color of the cigar is consistent. The veins are fairly small. It looks very nice overall. The construction of the cap looks good. It looks like the cap was put on evenly. That's one of the things that bother me about some cigars. When you look closely at the cap, you'll see that it shifted off to one side by a lot. This one looks like it's centered up. It was neatly applied. It looks, when you look over the cigar, it looks like there was a lot of care taken to put this cigar together, and that's always nice. Not much in terms of aroma on the wrapper or on the foot. Fairly bland pre-light draw. So with that said, I'm going to get my cigar lit, and while I do that, just like the Premier Maduros, these come in boxes of 24, and there are a variety of sizes available. From the looks of it, the entire Premier line is available in the same sizes. So you've got the big 60 by 6, you've got a Churchill Tubo, Double Corona, Torpedo, Toro, Corona, Robusto, and the Corona. And the 60 ring gauge is the 60, I think that's how you pronounce that. So far we've got the general rundown of the cigar, got a little bit of information about it, and I'm getting it lit, so try not to bore you too much. As I mentioned, these cigars are made in the Nestor Plasencia factory in the Segovia factory. It looks like I'm probably butchering these Spanish words. And the factory has a nickname of the Cathedral, and it's due to very large stained glass windows, exposed wood beams. It's got a very rustic and and sort of a cathedral look to it, obviously with the stained glass windows. So it's picked up that nickname, and this particular factory has a reputation for being having very tight quality control standpoints or standards, more so than some of the other factories. So it's pretty interesting just to read a little bit about that factory, which I really didn't know anything about until I started looking into the Los Blancos cigars. Well, the cigar's lit, producing a decent amount of smoke. But before I get out of here, just a little bit more on Los Blancos cigars. Everyone in the family is involved in the cigar business, from what I'm reading anyway. You know, just everyone plays a role, and that's how the company functions from day to day, which is pretty interesting to see that everyone is involved. It's not just you know, the cousins or the sons are doing their own thing, and everything's in disarray. It's pretty interesting. Family history goes back 80 years to the Pinar del Rio region of Cuba, and the company was established in 1998. Going back 80 years is the family's relationship with Nestor Plasencia. It seems that Nestor is, or the families are cousins. So you know, there's a lot of ties with Cuba and long time cigar manufacturing and whatnot between the two factories, which is pretty interesting, or between the two brands, I should say, which is pretty interesting. So anyway, with that said, I've got my cigar lit. It's burning well. It's got some nice flavor right off the start. So I'm going to relax just a little bit, get into the cigar some more. I'll be back. We'll do the first third, and we'll see how the Los Blancos Premier Criollo goes. So sit tight.
It was a perfect house in a quiet part of town. 2 kids, a swimming pool and a dog. 3 cars and a double garage. Past dinner he would get home, stressed out from the day.
So it's been about 30 minutes now, and I'm plugging right along on my Los Blancos Premier Criollo. If I had to guess, I would think I'm about 1.5 inches into the cigar, perhaps. So far, the cigar's doing pretty good. I've got a little bit of an issue with the burn line, or actually with the burning characteristics of the cigar. The burn line itself is a little heavy. It's actually correcting quite a bit right now and doesn't look half bad. Earlier on, it was showing a little bit of a blistering effect around the foot. Aside from that, the appearance was nice. You know, the ash had a nice light color to it, had a nice compact form. But the downside with the ash was that it's fairly weak. It doesn't take much to knock it off the cigar. And it probably has a lot to do with the fact that it's only a 44 ring gauge. And, well, for example, in between these clips, I take pictures of the cigar. Obviously, you're aware of that because you just saw a few of them before I turned the camera back on. After I took the one picture, I had the cigar in my mouth and I was sitting back down at my laptop, and sure enough, I had an ash just abruptly drop, you know, mid-keyboard. So it doesn't take much to knock the ash off the foot of the cigar. Just a little bit of extra movement is all it takes. Once the ash gets about a 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch long, I'm just keeping an eye on it and forcing it off. Again, it doesn't take much. Body starts off medium, and it pretty much stays medium throughout the first third. It does a nice job of coating the palate without being too much, and I don't mean too much in a sense that it's full, but sometimes cigars will give me the impression that they're medium body, but they're sort of I don't know, they're a little rough. I'm not getting that with this cigar at all. The finish is nice and crisp. After I expel the smoke out of my mouth, it lingers for very little time, and then I get this nice crisp feel, which is, it's nice, and it sort of gets me ready for the next puff. As far as the flavor goes, I'm getting what reminds me of that really nice Criollo tobacco flavor that I enjoy, and it probably has everything to do with the Criollo wrapper, as they are very similar. Actually, I think if I remember correctly, the Criollo wrapper is a hybrid of Criollo, which is a little more resilient to some of the diseases that are prone to Criollo. So I'm assuming that's where the flavor is coming from, or this Criollo-like flavor, or this very similar to Criollo flavor that I'm getting, and it's very nice. And I'm a sucker for Criollo cigars, so this one's doing very well already, just in the fact that it tastes like a lot of the Criollo flavors that I enjoy, or a lot of the Criollo cigars that I enjoy. The only downside is I'm getting a little bit of a soapy flavor afterwards. After the Criollo flavor begins to fade, I get this a little bit of a soapy flavor. It doesn't last long, which is nice, but it's not very pleasant. I'm more than willing to deal with this little bit of a soapiness for the other flavors that are going on, and unfortunately, as I said, it doesn't last very long. Actually beginning to get a little bit of a woody flavor now too, which is nice. It's not quite cedar, and I'm not quite sure what to describe it as, but it's definitely a woody flavor. And anyway, the draw is good. There's a little bit of resistance to it. It might be a little bit more loose than I generally prefer, but it's not bad. The cigar stays cool, produces lots of smoke. Burn rate seems about average for this size cigar. So aside from that little bit of a soapy flavor that the cigar is producing, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm happy with it. The minor bourbon problems that I was getting earlier on appear to be sort of correcting themselves. I get a little bit of a blistering there. You probably won't be able to see it, but I'm going to do it anyway and show you. But all in all, the cigar is doing well. I'm enjoying it much more than I did the Maduro that I had 2 weeks ago. So far, so good. And after I got the cigar lit, I decided that I wasn't going to pair it up with water, which is generally what I pair up cigars with. This is my third, so I decided to go with some bourbon that Ace mentioned on the fan forums. If you haven't been over to the fan forums, definitely check him out. There's a lot of different discussion going on. And in one of the threads, I had mentioned that Scotch gets very expensive, and I was looking for a less expensive alternative. And Ace had mentioned a few single barrel bourbons. So I picked one up over the weekend, and it's actually Eagle Rare, aged 10 years I think, single barrel bourbon. Runs about $25 a bottle. It's very, very aromatic, which is surprising, because as soon as you taste it, the first thing that came into my mind was, wow, it smells like it has so much more flavor than it tastes like. So it's kind of interesting. It does have flavor, but nowhere near what you would think from the aroma. So anyway, so far it's pairing up pretty well with my Los Blancos Premier Criollo. So with that said, enjoy some more pictures, a little bit of music. I'll be right back, and we'll get started on the second third. Well, welcome back. It's been just about an hour now, maybe a little bit more, and I'm still plugging right along. As I move through the first third into the second third now, I'm really enjoying the flavor of the cigar much more. It seems to have picked up a lot more depth, a lot more complexity, and those Criollo-like flavors are really coming through, and just I'm a sucker for that flavor profile. So cigar is just providing me with everything I like in a cigar. The body is still medium. I would say though that I think it could be a little fuller, and I think it might complement that Criollo-like flavor a bit more, at least for my preference anyway. But you know, I really don't have any complaints about the medium body. It hasn't changed much throughout. If anything, it's progressed just a little bit. Finish is working its way towards being creamy, which is really nice. I really enjoyed that sort of crisp flavor, or that crisp feeling, which I'm still getting as it's beginning to fade as this creaminess is beginning to press on. Of the two, I prefer the creamy texture. You know, the creamy texture, medium body, nice, rich, complex Criollo flavors. It's just it's making for a very enjoyable smoke. In terms of the burn line, the burn rate, and all that, the burning characteristics, it's kind of funny. I start typing up part of the review because I'm multitasking here. In between clips, I'm taking notes and whatnot. And as I'm typing stuff up, I'm getting this blistering line around the cigar. It's not too bad, but there's a definite blister to the wrapper. And then as soon as I turn the camera on, take a couple more puffs, it looks good again. So it's back and forth. I'm getting a little bit of blistering, then it goes away, and then comes back again, and goes away, and whatnot. Burn line itself is fairly thin. It's nice and dark. It's got a nice oily sheen to it. You know, when you just hold the cigar and rotate it, it's got this nice glossy black ring. A little wavy, but really not bad at all. Burn rate is about average. Like I said, I've been at this for just over an hour, and being a slow smoker, this seems about right to me. I don't feel rushed. I don't feel like the cigar is taking longer than it should. It just feels like a nice, smooth, you know, easygoing cigar, which I'm enjoying. So I think that about does it for my notes. I don't have anything else I wanted to add in. Oh yeah, the woody flavor that I was getting before, it's starting to pick up a little bit more, and it still presents itself as a secondary flavor. And what I mean by that is, you take a puff of the cigar. The first flavor that hits me is this very nice, this Criollo-like flavor. After that settles, you know, it begins to fade, and then I start to taste a more subtle wood flavor, more so than before, at least now. And this wood flavor, I still can't put my finger on it. It doesn't taste like cedar, and but it's definitely wood, and I'm not quite sure what it is. The smoke is beginning to get a little bothersome. It's getting a little heavy, and it's enough to sort of make your nose pucker up a little bit, just from the. It's got a little bit of an acrid aroma to it, but you know, it doesn't seem overly offensive when I'm sitting in the room. It's just when I get a little bit of smoke in my face, it kind of irritates a little bit. Aside from that, so far so good. If I had to pick one of the Premier cigars that I prefer, I had the Connecticut, but I'm going to leave that out until the review, obviously. But out of the Maduro and the Criollo, I'm really enjoying the Criollo much better than I did the Maduro. So there you have it. Again, some more pictures are going to pop up. A little bit of music courtesy of PodSafeMusicNetwork.com, and I'll be back, do the final third, wrap up the review, and let you be on your way.
Hopeless in life, beaten down, you're there for me. When I see darkness and light, take me from my misery.
Well, you guessed it, I am back, and it's about time to wrap up the cigar. Not a whole lot of change from the second third to the final third. The body has been consistent throughout. If anything, it's progressed slightly. Finish is now nice and creamy, and it accents the flavors very nicely. That rich Criollo-like flavor that I was getting throughout the entire cigar, it just picks up this complexity and depth as I go along. You know, as the cigar gets shorter and shorter, this Criollo flavor just really kicks in. It just gets very thick and dense, and I enjoy it very much. And like I mentioned, you know, I'm a sucker for a good Criollo cigar, so this one is just, it's really suited for my flavor profile, so it's no wonder why I like it as much as I do. The woody flavor that I was getting earlier on, it's now beginning to transition into a flavor that definitely tastes like cedar. And the cigar is beginning to put off an aroma that reminds me of opening a cigar box. You know, open a cigar box for the first time, you get hit in the face with this nice tobacco and cedar aroma, and that's really what I'm getting out of the cigar, and it's very nice. That little bit of a soapy flavor that I was getting earlier on, it's sort of faded out in second third, and I'm getting another unpleasant flavor that's beginning to come back into the picture, and it's sort of like a grassy flavor. It doesn't really hinder the smoke at all. I don't find it appealing. It just seems like something that shouldn't be there, just a little something that doesn't belong, that I could really do without. But aside from that, I really like the flavor profile. I could do without that little bit of a grassy flavor, but again, it's minute in comparison to the rich Criollo flavor. The burn line of the cigar has finally stopped bubbling. I would say it's thin and even at this point, although it looks a little wavy on camera. That's well within reason. I'm perfectly fine with that little bit of waviness. It's acceptable as far as I'm concerned. Ash color is light. It's got a very nice look to it. It's firm, compacted, but just as before, it's very weak. I actually had another chunk of ash fall, you know, right in front of me. So, you know, I really have to keep an eye on the cigar. I can't let the ash develop too much, otherwise it may wind up all over my laptop again. Burn rate of the cigar, again, it's about average. It just feels right. I'm at an hour and a half now. I don't feel like I'm smoking too fast. It doesn't feel like a cigar's taking too long. Draws a little loose for my preference, but it provides a cool smoke that's very dense and flavorful. And you know, again, even with that little bit of a loose draw, the cigar isn't getting hot. It's not warm on the fingers. It's not hot when I, you know, draw on it. So the cigar feels like it's constructed very well, and I'm very happy with that. As far as, you know, my overall impression of the cigar, as I had mentioned earlier, I really prefer this one over the Maduro, and I'll leave my opinion of this one over the Connecticut for the next Los Blancos review I do, which will most likely be the Connecticut. But, you know, of the two, you know, I think this one, it just is packed with flavor. The body is just right. It suits me very well, whereas the other one just wasn't quite what I prefer in a cigar. So I would recommend this to anyone that was looking for a medium-bodied Criollo cigar, or not a Criollo cigar, but a cigar that's going to provide those Criollo flavors, much like you're going to get out of a Camacho or something, but it's toned way down. You know, don't look at this cigar and think, well, you know, Camachos have a reputation for being very strong, and Walt said that it's sort of similar to the flavor profile of the Camacho. You know, it's sort of blowing out of proportion a little bit. This is much milder. It doesn't have near the body. It's very nice, medium, relaxed sort of feeling cigar. I like them, and I'd recommend picking them up if you had the opportunity. The price point, like I said, I think it's about $5. I think it's fair. Distribution on these cigars isn't nearly as big as a lot of the other cigars, so I think you're going to pay a little bit of a premium for that, and I think that's acceptable. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. About $5 for a Corona. It's it's a decent value. So that's my general impression of the Los Blancos Premier Criollo. As far as what I'm going to be doing next week, I'm not 100% sure. I'm kind of hoping I get something a little special for next week's review. I'm not quite sure whether or not that's going to fall into my lap in time for next week's review. If it does not, I still don't know what I'm going to be smoking. So keep an eye on the comments field of this review, and I'll try to keep you posted on what's coming up next. Appreciate some comments about the Los Blancos cigars. Have you had them before? What do you think of them? And especially, what do you think of the Criollo? So I look forward to getting some comment feedback. And until next week, happy smoking.